So this hero that we talked about for this linked list, so obvious, gonna start establishing everything proper before we begin. The hero we're playing is linked list, and obvious, always argue brute force against our hero. For conditions, there's always the after, and then there's the before. Without further ado, obvious, we're gonna come in and actually have a play out series. So as we new to topic, obviously we're gonna try to actually play out series to figure things ASAP. So what I believe from the very start is that they have this gigantic problem. Okay, and before that is that what they want to do is basically reverse everything. So everything is like pointing towards right side, right? They want to reverse everything, point towards the side. Generally, that's the core objective of the game, that they want to reverse the direction of everything. And for this case, the direction is basically all the action verb. It's basically the spell of the linked list per se. So yep, that. Yep, with the overall grand scheme of the game, is that what they, I think what they try to do is that they try to break it down into smaller problems. So this is one gigantic problem. Yeah, that was what I wanted to say. A gigantic problem. They want to break it down to smaller pieces. So this giant piece become a smaller piece. So first thing first, they just look at the tree, right? And after the tree base case, they look at the, I think they did actually mention about the null, right? The null value. And at the null value, it's just a very much a base case. There's nothing for us to do with it. There's nothing, because it has no direction at all. At the null, no action verb at all. There's nothing for us to actually reverse. So we track back towards before the base case, which is at the tree. At the tree, we were pointing towards null, right? And we want to try to reverse it. We want to action verb this to somewhere else. So we point towards I think empty spot first. So that's for the first one. And then we move on to the second phase. So for the second phase, now we have me over here, and what I want is my forward guy to actually point at me. So we now have reference point for the tree. So instead of pointing null this time around, we cancel it out, point towards me. Yeah. And for here, I'm just gonna point towards null, right? Because obviously I want to point towards previous, I don't want to point anywhere else. But for now, I got nothing to point, I gotta point it. Next phase. Now we have me. Now obviously I got a reference for every single thing right now, and I know that my forward one got to point at me. So I'm gonna cancel the null, make the two point towards me, and I'm gonna point towards reverse. And for this case, it will be towards null. And with that, I think they actually established that, say that, okay, I want your head, you need, for every linked list, this is the rule. This is the rule, this is the rule of the game. that you have to know your head, and from the very get-go we just point our head towards the very first link, which is over here. Point the head towards over here as our head, and this is our new head per se, and that's the playout series for this one at least. I think for this question, I mean, the overall objective is obviously to actually reverse our action verb, and I mean, for doing this, I mean, for this hero, one of its spells that is actually cast is that it can actually high maneuver around the map. So for this case specifically is that it can actually rearrange itself very quickly. Rearrange the nodes, rearrange elements that like let's say for example how they are actually able to actually rearrange elements. It's cause they use this spell called the action verb per se, because the action verb can sometimes point towards null, point towards once, or you can even skip one node. You can skip one element, and then that's how you actually remove an element. But for this case, the utility of this action verb for this question is that they trying to change the direction towards the left side. They can, from the right side they point towards the left side. So I believe that was the thing. And for this question specific, obviously they're asking for us to actually rearrange the elements from right side all the way to the left side. That's the overall objective per se. And it's basically, the question is actually asking for the hero's spells basically. And for this question specific, I'm talking about this question is talking about asking about under the category of like question to regards to heroes with jobs. Heroes with jobs. And when you answer about questions about heroes with jobs, very straightforward, because it's just asking about you. Can you please ask your hero cast his spells, please? There you go. We cast our spell, straight away we solve the problem. And obvious, you always, every single questions, you always argue between brute force against the hero, right? And for the most parts, brute force arguing against a hero with a job, it usually end up in this way. Okay, I think I know. So one can actually argue that, okay, why do I set my new head to be over here? Because the rulebook asks you to do that. Why do I actually point towards an empty thing? Because if I don't point towards the empty thing, it's breaking the logic of this whole system. Because at the end of the day, each time we go to each element, we always point towards the head. So it's like saying that, okay, you're free. we want something to point towards me, and then I'm not going to point towards something else. So if I go to 1 and I repeat that same behavior, I have something point towards me, but I don't point towards somewhere else per se, I'm not going to be able to actually follow the game or the rule of the game that I need to at the end of the day to point towards a null. I'm not going to do that. I can't do that, right? So obvious, stick to the pattern whereby 3, yes, something point towards me, fine. I need to have the habit point towards an empty thing, so that the moment I come to 1, yes, something is pointing towards me, and at the same time, I'm also pointing towards a null, a habit that I introduced from the very start, and then to the very end, still repeat it, and then I'm be able to actually finish off the question with like finance, you know. So I think with that, obvious, everything comes to an end.